It's as easy as that. So that's the old one. It's knackered. Let's throw a new one in there now.
G'day viewers, Dano here from Dano's channel, back at ya all over again. Alright, while I was crawling around underneath the Hilux here last week doing these camp lights, I noticed that we'd sprung a bit of a leak on the back wheel here. I suspect it's the axle seal. So what we're going to do today is rip the wheel off and change out that axle seal, and hopefully that'll solve our problem. So if you want to know how to do that, let's jump right into it. Ew!
Oh yeah, first thing we're going to do is jack it up, throw some axle stands under it, whip the wheel off, and then have a look at what we've got to do. But they are tight. Okay, we've got our wheel off, we're up on a jack stand. Next thing we've got to do is pull our brake drum off. Make sure your handbrake's off, that'll make it a hell of a lot easier to get it off. You don't have those brake shoes expanded out holding the drum on there. They usually just pull off. If they are a little bit tight, you can thread an M8 bolt in this hole here and wind that in, and that'll push it out off the hub. There's one on both sides. If you need 2 bolts, get 2 bolts. But look, we'll have a go getting this one off without the bolts. There you go, hub off. Look at all that oil in there. Definitely telling me that we've got a leaking axle seal, and that is oil. That's not brake fluid. It's not ideal. I am going to have to replace the brake shoes as well, but let's get that seal done first. Next thing we're going to do is pop this little lug out. That's where our handbrake cable locks in. We're also going to whack this hose crimping tool on our soft brake line back here, just so I don't have to bleed the whole braking system. And then I'll disconnect the hard brake line from the back of the housing plate back here. So you can see what that looks like right there. Once that's all off, I've only got 4 nuts to undo on the back here, and I should be able to slide this whole plate off, remove the axle, and get access to the seal. So that's our handbrake cable disconnected from our brake shoes. There is a 10mm bolt on the back of the backing plate that locks it in there. We'll pull that out as well, so when we take the axle out, it all pulls out nicely. Next thing we're going to do is clip these brake clamps on, and then using one of these flange nut spanners. We need 10mm to remove these flange nuts. We'll do that. It's best that you use one of these. If you're not using them and you round off those flange nuts, it becomes a bit more of a bigger sort of job. So let's get into that. With those couple of bolts out, we can take this little linkage out here, which is part of the handbrake mechanism, and take off that cable that we removed earlier. There is another way of doing this. You can remove the pin that's on the end of your handbrake cable, but mine's all seized in there, so it's easier for me to go this way rather than banging that bloody pin out. With our handbrake mechanism all removed, all we've got to do now is remove the 4 nuts that are on the back here, securing our hub to our axle housing, and pop the whole lot out. Rightio, with all our nuts off and our brake line disconnected, park brake disconnected, the next thing we've got to do is pull the axle out. So this one's going to come out pretty easy, but if it doesn't, what you can do is you can grab your brake drum, just reverse it, slide it back on, put your wheel nuts on just nice and loosely, and then use your brake drum as a slide hammer just to pull that axle out and break that seal. With the axle removed, that's the seal that we need to replace. So it actually feels pretty hard, so I'm not surprised that it's leaking. There is an O-ring around the outside here. I would advise that you get a new one of them and replace that while you're at it. I'm just going to give that a little bit of a clean up. I'll whip that seal out and yeah, put a new one in. Although with a bit of that cleaned up, we're going to use this seal puller to rip the old seal out. It's as easy as that. So that's the old one. It's knackered. Let's throw a new one in there now. Righto, here's our new seal. This cost us $12 Aussie, so it's not expensive at all. So just going to grab a bit of oil and lube the outside up just a little bit. Make it slip in a little bit easier. Shouldn't really need to do that. Slot it in, and then just using a soft hammer, we'll give it a tap in if you don't have a seal drift. Simple as that. Righto, I'm going to fit the new O-ring around there, just like that. And then using a bit of this rubber grease, I'm going to lube up the inside of the seal and then push the axle back in. If you do run into issues where this seal keeps giving up the ghost, I suggest you check your axle out and make sure that it hasn't worn or anything like that where this seal sits. Seal's all lubed up. Next job's put the axle back in, and I'm going to try and put it back in without having the axle rub on the seal and potentially damage it. Once we got that back in, we just got to do all our nuts and bolts and brake lines and all that sort of stuff up, and the job will be right. When we're doing up the nuts that lock our hub onto our axle housing, the manual says torque them up to 51 foot-pound, so make sure you check the manual and get the right setting for your vehicle. And do them in a cross pattern so you get nice even tightening. So everything's tight there. Don't forget to remove your hose clamp on your brake lines, and yeah, once we've got all that refitted, we'll bleed the brakes and go from there. We've got everything back together and all buttoned up. Last job we've got to do is bleed the brakes before we put the wheel back on. That is a bit hard to do yourself, so Skip the safety roo is going to give me a bit of a hand with that. That's a 10mm spanner on the bleed nipple, that's all that you need. You've just got to build up pressure in the brake lines and then release it to push any air out that you've got. So let's get into that. Righto, Skip, pump it up. You all the way down. Pump it up. Hold it. Pump it up. Hold it. Hello, once you've done that, job's right, throw the wheel back on, check the brakes out and all that sort of stuff. I haven't replaced the brake shoes. I don't have any with me, but look, that's a piece of piss. There's plenty of videos out there showing you how to do that. So, yeah, if you've liked the video, don't forget to give the channel the old thumbs up. 97% of the people that watch this channel aren't subscribed, so if you're one of them, do the right thing. Hit the subscribe button down there in the old low bar, and yeah, help a brother out. Cheers for sticking around. I hope this has helped you out if you do need to do your axle seals. See you on the next one.